future is still unknown. I never have to worry who I'm turning to. That's why That's why I need you. That's why I need you.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks very much for joining this session that we're holding today. But before we start, I'd like to introduce Inga, who's going to do our welcome to this presentation. Thanks, Inga.
So good morning and welcome. We welcome you to the Swedish and the Sami land. In this meeting, we give gratitude to the Sami land and the connection we as Samis have with the land and the water. And we also give some gratitude to the land of Stockholm, which is a capital on water, which is very suitable for this water week. Some of the Swedish land is Sami land. We don't own it, but we have been here since time immemorial. And we acknowledge the Sami people as the traditional continuing custodian of the land, the seas and mountains, water, rivers. And we pay our respect to our ancestors from the past and those who will come after us. And we express our deep gratitude to them and acknowledge the coming leaders. Thank you.
Thank you, Inga, for welcoming us to the lands of the Sami people. And I would also like to acknowledge the Sami people as one people and as the Indigenous people of the Fenno-Scandinavian region. So good morning. My name is Cheryl Hedges and I'm honoured to welcome you here to this very important session for us. I am a proud Wambunja woman, and that's from the southeast coast of New South Wales in Australia. And I serve as the head of the First Nations Water Branch in the Australian Government Department of Climate Change, Energy, the Environment and Water. Today, we are gathering to shine a light on the vital role of Indigenous leadership and traditional knowledges in water management. And as we face growing climate and geopolitical instability, it is more urgent than ever to centre Indigenous voices, our values and lived experience in how we govern and how we care for our water systems. This morning, you will hear powerful case studies from Indigenous leaders from around the world. Each case study will demonstrate, in their own unique ways, what decision-making, leadership and self-determination looks like in practice. These case studies offer lessons in how ethical and equitable water governance can and should be achieved. They also provide evidence and inspiration for how organisations and governments can support, embed and listen to Indigenous knowledge holders. Each speaker will have time to present their case study and engage in dialogue with fellow presenters, followed by a Q&A session with all of you in the audience towards the end of our session here today. It is our hope that today helps seed ongoing collaboration, particularly among Indigenous leaders, and strengthen engagement across global water forums. So I'm just going to get our first two speakers to join us on stage. So it is now my pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Dr. Malika Sobey. So Malika is an Indigenous Fijian and currently serves as Technical Advisor for Coastal Ecosystems with GIZ Pacific. In this role, she provides expert guidance on a blue carbon project being implemented across 4 Pacific Island nations, Papua New Guinea, Vanuatu, Solomon Islands, and of course in Fiji. With a career spanning over 2 decades, Malika spent 20 years as an academic at the University of the South Pacific, where she taught and led research in nutrient cycling, fisheries, coral reef ecology and water quality. She has also worked with International Union for Conservation of Nature Oceania, managing climate change adaptation projects across the Pacific. She has contributed extensively to freshwater system work, from water quality monitoring and freshwater fisheries to catchment management and the political economy of the water sector. Malika is a founding member of the Women in Fisheries Network and continues to volunteer with Nature Fiji Maraketi Viti, apologies for pronunciation, and the Fiji Environmental Law Association. So please join me in welcoming Marika.
Thank you very much, Cheryl. Bulubinaka, everyone. Let's go straight into the first slide, shall we? So, I don't know how many of you have heard of Fiji water, but it's probably the one product that's put the tiny country that I'm from on the world map. It's a global brand, and apparently the premium bottled water in the US is consumed in 60 different countries globally. And it was established in 1994 by a Canadian entrepreneur by the name of David Gilmore. He later sold it 10 years later to an American company, the Wonderful Company. That is the name of the company. It's not an adjective that I've just thrown in. It's called the Wonderful Company. And they're one of the leading producers of nuts and also citrus in the US. It's a big US-based company. Fijians work for the company on the floor, but that's about it. The other thing that's really put our country on the world map is our rugby team. We love our rugby in Fiji. And we've actually done quite well for the size of the country. So last year we won the gold medal at the Paris Olympics for the abbreviated code. And so we've got these big burly men that ran out on the pitch with Fiji water emblazoned across their chests, because Fiji water is the sponsor of our rugby team. So, you know, they're masters at branding. How did this all start? The picture at the bottom is Yangara catchment, where Fiji Water has its aquifer. It extracts straight from source, bottles it on site, and is then shipped. This land of 15,000 acres was once native land. If I can just explain what native land is, it's owned by indigenous Fijians, and in many countries of the Pacific, in fact, in all the countries of the Pacific, anything from 65% to 98% of the land is owned by indigenous people, which makes it quite different to other regions of the world. But in this case, this was native land, and it was owned by 12 tribes headed by the paramount chief that's pictured at the top. I should mention that that paramount chief was installed in 1993 after a lapse of 80 years. The title was vacant. A lot of things happened during those 80 years. But how did it go from native land to being leased by such a huge American corporation? It goes back to colonialism and colonial times. And this is where weak traditional leadership played a role, because the land is owned communally. It's not owned by the chief. It's owned by the members of his tribe. But he sold it in the 1860s to European settlers that came to Fiji. You know, there was a tide of them that came in because of low labor costs and the opportunities that were offered. He sold it without the knowledge of his people. And then that business went bust, and the colonial powers, or the British at the time, came in to the picture. Now, the British brought Christianity to Fiji, but the 12 tribes of this particular area were very proud. They were very proud of their traditional belief system, of their traditional deities, their traditional priests and oracles, and they weren't having a bar of Christianity. So they put up quite a resistance to the British powers. And they were very independent socially and politically. Anyway, British got sick of them and shipped them off into exile for 16 years to an island offshore. When they came back, they found that their land had been taken over by the colonial administration, their villages had been razed to the ground, and we had this sad situation of people dispossessed of their land. In 1993, 2 British hydrogeologists did a survey of this area, and they said, and in the publication that they wrote, there's some really good underwater springs here. It could probably do well for the government to use these underwater springs to provide for the rural water supply of this area. And also it would do well in bee farming and citrus farming. This was published in 1993. News must have gotten out because the 20 acres of land that Natural Waters of Fiji, which bottled Fiji water to start with, actually leased the land where the aquifer was located. And so, that's shrewd business. Anyway, that's how it all got started. To this day, the people of Watukaloko still lament the fact that they can't get onto their land. In fact, Yangara Pastoral Company has taken over that block of land, which is a state-owned enterprise, and they've leased out parcels of the land to different entities, the most lucrative parcel being given to Fiji Water. When the native landowners want to access their land to pick mangoes for selling or for firewood or for diving for freshwater mussels, they need to apply for passes, and it's only issued on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So it's actually quite a sad situation. But I'd like to highlight the fact that had traditional leadership been stronger, perhaps things might have been a bit different. And this is where I think that we really need to address this issue of traditional governance systems, and also the need for development partners to recognize the traditional leadership systems that exist. Because the history of Fiji Water has been checkered by all sorts of problems, with the landowners invading at one time in the year 2000, trying to shut the power plant, the bottle plant down, all sorts of problems throughout the years. And it's just because the original resource owners really weren't consulted at all in this venture. This gentleman that was installed, if you could see the full picture, it was against, the backdrop was the Nakovandra Range, which holds a lot of sacred connection to the Fijian people because it's believed that's where we first originated from. And they're the custodians, his people are the custodians of the Nakovandra Range. Okay. The second issue that has enabled Fiji Water to be so successful are listed in those bullet points that I have on the PowerPoint slide there. Our weak, formal institutional framework is very weak. And you can see how companies, by law, weren't required to be transparent with how much they were, the abstraction rates, the amount of water they were removing. They could easily drill boreholes without the mandated government agency being allowed to go in and see what they were doing. So really, it was a free-for-all with the current legislation. And this legislation is something we inherited from the colonial masters. It's something that's currently being reviewed, along with other pieces of legislation that we inherited from the colonial times. Fiji became independent in 1974, so 96 years we were ceded to Great Britain. So as you can see from those slides that I've highlighted there on the PowerPoint, it's the weakness in our legal or our institutional frameworks that's contributed or that's enabled these bottling water companies to do as they please, to keep bottling and not be accountable, not be transparent with what they're removing. And this has got to change. And this is in the pipeline now, because the next slide is showing something that was just launched in June last year. We've got now a groundwater policy. Now, the policy is only as good as the paper it's written on if it's not implemented. So hopefully it will be implemented, and it lays the groundwork for legislation on groundwater in Fiji. But this policy is basically requiring a lot more transparency, a lot more accountability from these private companies that are extracting water, because we do have a lot of companies coming in, a lot of foreign investors are very interested in extracting groundwater from the other big island as well. Fiji Water, I think, has 9 boreholes. There's another 13 that's up for grabs in that Yangara catchment area. So it's something that the government's got to tread very carefully with. And I think if there's a message, a take-home message from all this, is that you need to show some respect for the traditional resource owners. They need to be at the table when negotiations are made for these permits. They need to be consulted, they need to be respected, and treated with some humility, because otherwise it can lead to a lot of angst for the company during their time of operation. And I hope that other landowners in Fiji will learn from this experience we've had with Fiji Water, because it's been rife with difficulties. The landowners are still, in 2020, they asked the government for the reversion of this land back to native land. They're still fighting that. They're asking for some sort of royalty payment, but as you could see from the previous slide, under the current law, they're not entitled to any royalties. So it's been a constant battle for them, but they have this history of being very fierce fighters, so they will continue the fight, and I hope that we learn our lesson from this going forward. I think that is all I have to say. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Malika, for your presentation. Kay, I think you've got a question for Malika.
I do. It's a bit long-winded, but please bear with me. So Malika, working across the Pacific Island countries, how do you foster collaboration between Indigenous traditional knowledge holders and scientific experts in water and coastal ecosystem projects?
Mm-hmm. Do you want me to use the microphone?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think we have a very successful network called the Locally Managed Marine Area Network K that does that for marine conservation areas. And I think that it's something that freshwater systems could actually learn from and perhaps try and replicate for freshwater systems. But basically, the Locally Managed Marine Area Network is established by communities, and it's a coalition. It's a coalition of traditional chiefs, of community members, of decision makers in government, of researchers in academic institutions, and it brings them all together to work together in the management of these marine areas, to exchange knowledge, to exchange lessons learned, and to address any challenges together. And this coalition has worked very well. The local marine managed area network was quite extensive until COVID. It kind of collapsed, not collapsed, but people started eating from it out of necessity because our tourism industry collapsed, and so they had to have food, and they accessed these no-take areas during COVID. But by and large, it's been a really good model that could be replicated by freshwater resource owners.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Malika. So now it is my pleasure to introduce our next speaker. So Kay is a proud Manandangi Aboriginal woman from southwest Queensland in Australia, and since retiring, I put that in inverted commas, in 2023, Kay has dedicated even more of her time and passion to advancing Aboriginal water interests, a journey that began over 12 years ago in the Northern Murray-Darling Basin. She brings deep knowledge and lived experience to her leadership in on-country projects that embeds First Nations knowledge, self-determination and rights into water modelling and assessments. Kay is an active member of several national and regional bodies, including Australian Government's Committee on Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Water Interests, the Murray-Darling Basin Steering Group and Cultural Advisory Group, and the IATSIS Human Research Ethics Committee. Her continued involvement across these spaces reflects her tireless commitment to First Nations representation and wellbeing, and her respected leadership in government, in Indigenous advocacy and environmental stewardships. So please join me in welcoming Kay.
Thank you, Cheryl. Am I loud enough? Yes? So good morning, everyone. My name is Kay Blades, as Cheryl's just introduced me. I am a Manandangi woman from Australia. I'm a recognised traditional owner and custodian within the Manandangi Nation. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the land that we meet on today, the Sami people. I'd also like to pay my respects to elders past and present. Thank you for your warm welcome and hospitality. I also want to acknowledge my elders, for it's their knowledge passed on to me that grounds me in my cultural identity and the work I do in the water space. My water country sits in the northern part of the Murray-Darling Basin, or Basin for short. The work I do in the water space is driven by my connection to my river, the Balonne River, and I have an obligation to look after country. For over 65,000 years, Aboriginal Australians have shaped, managed and cared for the lands and waters of the basin and the rest of Australia. Today, I want to take this opportunity to highlight that we as Indigenous people are not participants in the water sector. In Australia, we shape government policies and we are responding to a changing climate. I hope my presentation demonstrates that Indigenous knowledge systems, when truly invested in, can help drive sustainable water futures in a changing climate. The image, it's up, thank you. The image up on screen, sorry, I've lost my place. So what I like about the image on the screen is the strong presence of women. Women are custodians, knowledge holders and protectors of water. The image was created by artists Dylan Finney and Rochelle Cooper from Black Logic with the Aboriginal Water Entitlements Program Advisory Group, a group advisor to the Australian Government. I'd like to take a little time now to share with you my lived experiences of walking in two worlds. My role as a traditional custodian, trying to look after my people and country, is one world, and the other world is where I am an advisor to governments. When these two worlds collide, I'm firmly grounded in my cultural beliefs and values. As a Manandangi woman, I work hard to look after my water country. It's an inherited obligation and responsibility. For me, it's deeply personal, and I'm proud of the work that I do to protect our sacred places along our river. Just this year on my country, I guided and led a project that incorporated Aboriginal knowledge and water modelling to better understand how our knowledge could be incorporated into Western technical projects for land management, rehabilitation and resilience outcomes. Water modelling is a process that we can weave Indigenous knowledge and leadership with contemporary science systems and technical experts to learn how to manage water sustainably together. This project required partnerships and shared decision-making between myself, project partners, and the Queensland Government. Shared decision-making means that Indigenous voices hold as much weight as project partners and government voices. Indigenous people can speak without fear of repercussions. Indigenous people's lived experience is understood and respected. Indigenous people have access to the same data as everyone else. As mentioned before, I also walk in another world as an advisor to governments. I'm a member of COWI, a member of the Committee on Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Water Interests. COWI advise on and develop high-level strategic policies that support the Australian Government's Department of Climate Change, Energy, the Environment and Water to elevate Indigenous people's water rights, interests and values in water reform initiatives. As a member of COWI, I do not represent, speak for or act on behalf of any Indigenous individual, organisation or community group. I am advising on better and stronger water reform outcomes for Indigenous Australians. COWI members are working for a structural change to how water is planned, managed and governed. COWI is involved in discussions with high-level water officials on matters related to the development and implementation of water reform. We work to elevate the cultural, spiritual, social, economic and environmental water rights and interests of Indigenous Australians. We try to challenge the status quo. Ultimately, COWI is working towards Indigenous Australians having enduring access to, ownership of and management of water. Australia's past water laws have failed to protect Indigenous Australians' cultural uses of surface and groundwaters. Since Australia was colonised in 1788, Indigenous Australians have been systematically excluded from our right to access, protect and manage water. Water and environment laws were never written with us in mind, and certainly not with us at the table. Still today, our water rights are sidelined by priorities like irrigation, agriculture and mining. Without meaningful participation and empowerment in water planning and management, Indigenous Australians will continue to miss out on opportunities. Opportunities to adapt policy for climate change and opportunities to generate wealth through water economies. That is where my role as an advisor to government comes in. COWI advocates for clear, measurable and well-informed water outcomes, objectives and benchmarks. We hold government to account and we ask to see evidence of tangible actions that will achieve better water outcomes for Indigenous Australians. COWI is also interested in data. Indigenous Australians need to understand not only what water is available to us, but what has been taken from us. At the heart of Australia's national water reform agenda is the need for real and enduring structural change that embeds Indigenous rights to water. In the early 2000s, Indigenous water was barely acknowledged in Australia's national reform agenda, just a few passing mentions. Through sustained leadership and advocacy, COWI are close to achieving dedicated national commitment with clear outcomes and guiding principles for Indigenous peoples in water reform. It's a sign of how far we've come and what we've achieved together. Australia's national water reform agenda is working to adopt positive changes, including recognising Indigenous rights to water, elevating Indigenous people's knowledges in water planning, increasing Indigenous-led discussions related to water management, improving accountability, monitoring and evaluation, and embedding remuneration policies to acknowledge Indigenous expertise. I believe that my role on COWI is helping to improve Indigenous Australians' rights to access and manage water. I want to see more Indigenous-led advisory bodies in Australia. Those who are resourced so that they continue to contribute to policies and programs that affect them. I would like to see Australia ratify the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. Australia endorsed it in 2009, but it's not written in our law. Indigenous peoples in Australia are aware of the extreme vulnerability of Indigenous rights to water if we do not have robust legal protection. My role on Cowie affords me the opportunity to advocate for national water reform that will have positive impacts for all Indigenous Australians. Through Cowie, I gain valuable insights out into how governments operate and the opportunities and barriers that exist for Indigenous Australians. The Australian Government is working towards Indigenous people being at the heart of decision related to water management. I believe we can improve Indigenous leadership and governance and water policy for climate action if we all work together in a spirit of partnership and respect for self-determination. As I said at the beginning of my presentation, the world that I walk in as an advisor to government sometimes feels at odds with my cultural responsibilities. So many times I have shared my knowledge or participated in a research project only to realise that nothing much has come of it. There has been little to no progress. This is incredibly frustrating. We must move beyond transactional activities towards real and meaningful actions and change. So I just want to leave you now with some key messages related to Indigenous leadership in water stewardship and global climate action. Indigenous wisdom, when truly invested in, can help drive sustainable water futures in a changing climate. It's important that Indigenous voices and lived experiences are not an add-on, but are part of everyday global climate action initiatives and discussions. Indigenous people have a wealth of knowledge that can help us all to adapt to a changing climate. This knowledge isn't free and it must be protected. To show respect, Indigenous people must be remunerated adequately for the sharing of their knowledge, their experiences and traditional sciences. Indigenous-led means that we get to create the table and invite governments to come and speak with us. Indigenous-led also means that we can monitor and evaluate what we determine as success. This is true self-determination and means that Indigenous people are empowered to deliver independent and expert advice to policymakers. Thank you.
Thank you, Kay, for sharing your thoughts and journey with us. Malika, I think you've got a question.
Sure. So, Kay, from your perspective, what is the one thing that you're regularly reminding government to do as part of your advisory role?
Thank you, Malika. There's one thing that's always sitting on the tip of my tongue when I speak to others. It's around cultural authority. It's around speaking with right people for right country. So in Australia, we need to get better at doing that. Too often I've seen strategies and documents and the like sort of have a tick the box whether cultural authority has been established. What I'm currently fighting for is government, whether it be local, state, federal, need to have a process, and they need to write into their documents what cultural authority is, how they establish it, so that it becomes very clear to educate everyone that needs to be involved. So that's a very clear message that I like to give when working with government and others. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we just give one more round of applause to Marika and Kay? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you. Thank you, Marika. Thank you. I would like to introduce our next speakers. So Kasika Aruba Patashaw, I'm really sorry about the pronunciation, is the vice Kasika of the Aldea Mai Baha Vaya really bad pronunciation, apologies again, located in the Indigenous territory of Monte Pascoal in Bahia, Brazil. She is also the Secretary of the Council of Caciques and Regional Coordinator of the Mupoiba, which is the United Movement of Indigenous Peoples and Organisations of Bahia. Aruba holds a degree in mathematics and is currently pursuing a Master's in Education, Culture, Social Movements and Collective Actions at the Federal University of Minas Gerais. Joining Aruba is Dr. Marcia Fernanda de Camargo, a researcher and educator with a PhD in Science, Technology and Society from UFC CAR. Marcia's interdisciplinary work explores decoloniality, climate justice and Indigenous epistemologies. Oh my gosh, that's a hard word to say. Epistemologies, still wrong, with extensive ethnographic research alongside the Patuxo people. She also teaches at the same university as Aruba in the Indigenous School, where she integrates English, art and intercultural education. Please welcome Aruba and Marcia. We're going to have a song first and then we're going to follow that up with the video. So over to you.
Hayokuan,
Good morning.
antes de iniciar qualquer momento um evento desse que se trata da mãe natureza, que para a gente a água é nosso sangue, a terra é nosso corpo e a floresta é nosso espírito. Então a gente tem que agradecer com canto, agradecendo a nossa ancestralidade.
So before starting any kind of event, and especially this one that is so important for Mother Nature, and reminding ourselves that, como que é a floresta?
A floresta é nosso espírito.
The forest is our spirit, the land is our body, and the water is our blood. So we always have to sing to thank nature and to begin our session.
Cana patashi petoi baixo che arna pucarare arna petoi puhu arna petoi akua arna petoi sarajaha pirare kahamiche siratan kahamiche siratan kahamiche siratan jahawi japoi pimayon. Na minha aldeia tem
So in my land we have
beleza sem plantar.
beauty without planting.
Eu tenho um arco,
I have the arrow.
eu tenho
I
flecha,
have the bow.
eu tenho raiz.
I have the
Para
roots
curar.
to cure.
Viva Tupã,
Bless Tupã
que nos veio trazer o sol.
that came to bring us the sun.
Ao ele.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll just show the video now.
Sou Uruba Pataxó, sou indígena do Brasil, do estado da Bahia, lá do município de Porto Seguro. O meu povo foi o primeiro que teve contato com os colonizadores quando chegaram ao Brasil. Eles falam que descobriu, mas para a gente foi invadido. Sou líder da minha comunidade, sou coordenadora regional pela Organização Unida dos Povos Indígenas do Estado da Bahia, a Mupoiba.
Hello everyone, I'm Marcia Camargo. I'm a researcher working together in partnership with indigenous communities. And Uruba envisioned bring as much voice as possible and as much as ancestor knowledge possible also. So in a few minutes, you will hear about her projects, her role as a leader, and also the perspectives for the future.
Hoje, o povo Pataxó do território Barra Velha, junto com o território Comexatibá, temos um projeto de um guerreiro ativista, é indígena e ativista do meio ambiente. É a construção de uma escola de guerreiros e guerreiras da Mata Atlântica. Escola de guerreiros e guerreiras da Mata Atlântica, porque o bioma da nossa região é a Mata Atlântica. Então, nós temos que cuidar lá que tem, que existe as últimas espécies de seres vivos, de plantas, de ave, é fauna e flora dentro do nosso território. Então, a gente sempre pensou de preservar o nosso território, essa fauna, essa flora, porque se a gente não preservar o que é nosso, eles vão secar um dia, porque não existe indígena sem água, porque a água de onde a gente caça, pega nosso peixe, a gente bebe, é para a gente plantar, é para cuidar. E falar que o povo Pataxó, ele surgiu da água. Ele surgiu da água. É chamado na nossa língua de teu pai. Veio um trovão com muita chuva e dali o povo Pataxó surgiu da água. E hoje estou aqui para contar que eu sou um povo da água, do surgimento da água. Então temos que defender o nosso planeta Terra, que é a nossa mãe, que nós temos que viver nela para paz, para sempre. Vou dizer só não nós indígenas, mas todos. Mas nós somos os principais defensores da mãe natureza.
Sou o cacique Mandim Pataxó, da aldeia Rio do Caí, no entorno do Monte Pascoal, do tronco de primeiro contato na história dos povos indígenas do Brasil. Eu venho dividir com vocês um sonho que já se começa a tornar realidade aqui no nosso território. A formação de guerreiros será um espaço de reprodução e fortalecimento de nossa cultura e ciência, onde, através desse instituto, podemos reproduzir a nossa cultura, os nossos saberes, raízes e vivências e tradições do nosso povo, onde isso trará um equilíbrio, um fortalecimento para toda a humanidade. Agora, demos um novo passo, a criação do Instituto Pataxó, Escola de Formação de Guerreiros e Guerreiras da Mata Atlântica, onde esse instituto trará uma reprodução fortalecida da fauna e flora, onde esse instituto fortalecerá o desenvolvimento da nossa juventude, a perpetuação e o fortalecimento de nossa cultura ancestral, onde a gente vai poder multiplicar, reproduzir, fortalecer cada vez mais. O Instituto Escola de Formação de Guerreiros e Guerreiras da Mata Atlântica é o nosso futuro, é a nossa esperança, porque vamos reproduzir o conhecimento dos saberes tradicionais e originais do nosso povo, onde trouxe vida saudável, águas cristalinas, animais silvestres, fruta nativa. E a gente vai trabalhar para reproduzir cada vez mais isso que foi muito degradado, muito prejudicado. Então, através desse Instituto Escola de Formação de Guerreiros e Guerreiras da Mata Atlântica, vamos estar firmes e fortes juntos, porque para nós, o povo Pataxó, as águas são nossas veias de sangue, a terra é nossa carne e a floresta faz parte de nossa espiritualidade essencial. Tchaueri, muito obrigado.
Now I would like to share a partnership we had the honor to be part of this year. Sing Sapmi brought together generations from 10 to 19 years old in a living laboratory within the ancestor territory. Here, science grows both from the land and from ancestor knowledge. This project, led by Mybrit Allman, creates space for inclusion and participation. We also honored to collaborate with Singh Sami Maibrit Oman, who will share more about this initiative. It is deeply connected to the future perspectives for the territory and strengthens the struggle for land rights. From the Atlantic forest to the boreal forest, these national and international collaborations show the power of walking together.
Boris Mognamal Maibrit Öhman. Hi, I'm Maibrit Öhman. I am Lule and Forest Sami from Lule River Valley, and also I have heritage from the Tornedalen Valley. I'm a researcher, a PhD in history of technology and associate professor of environmental history, now at the Uppsala University. And I'll mention a bit about an ongoing project, the Sing SAPMI, that is a collaboration with US, the summer internship for Indigenous people in genomics that started in the US in 2011 and then been in Canada as well. And in this program, we are working with training Indigenous people to learn about science, to take space, claim space in science and technology, create international networks with exchange with Indigenous people throughout the world.
Now that we have seen how this project has been making an impact, let's move forward to the next one. It highlights a different approach, but with the same spirit of collaboration and innovation.
My name is Juana Segovia Tzompa. I'm a research fellow at the Center of Natural Hazards and Disaster Science and a postdoc researcher at the Swedish Defense University. Last year, I developed a project to analyze the perceptions of local communities on disaster risk governance, through which I collaborate with Pataxó people in Brazil and researcher Marcia G. Camargo. Together, this year, we unpack how Pataxó people perceive that land grabbing, lack of land rights recognition, and other private interests, along with climate change, are causing the depletion of water sources in the Pataxó territory, leading to water scarcity and potentially causing droughts in the near future.
I am Paulo Lugon, CIMI International Advisor. Water is a key element for Indigenous people's traditional lifestyles and for the enjoyment of their fundamental rights. For many people, rivers and water sources are living beings and sacred according to their spiritual values. In its yearly report on violence against Indigenous peoples, CIMI highlights incidents of water pollution, either by mercury on illegal gold mining, the so-called garimpo, or by pesticides, or even drying out of water resources by the paper industry. The partnership with the Pataxó people gives us the opportunity to fight against drying out of the Caraíva River by a large eucalyptus plantation, enabling them to live off traditional fishing and using water in a safe and sustainable manner. For this purpose, not only combating the green deserts, but also recovering water springs is another priority for the Pataxó people. The Pataxó people possesses the millenary environmental technology to recover these degraded water sources, certified by Mother Nature. CIMI upholds the principle of agents of change, by which Indigenous peoples are not only victims of climate change, but also protagonists of climate resilience. Thank you.
Vou falar um pouco sobre esse congresso da água como indígena. É muito importante para nós indígenas, os povos indígenas do Brasil. Para nós, Pataxó, a água é nosso sangue, a terra é nosso corpo e a floresta é nosso espírito.
Thank you so much for sharing that video with us. I do have a question for you, though. So what should organisations or governments stop doing and what should they start doing? Can you repeat that? Sure. What should organisations or governments stop doing And what should they start doing to better support Indigenous leadership in water governance?
O que o governo brasileiro ele deveria de fazer, hoje eu quero dizer assim que o parlamentar brasileiro é o que está matando o nosso povo.
Okay, so she thinks the federal government should do, and first she made a reflection, the Parliament of Brazil is trying to kill the indigenous people.
Está criando as leis para exterminar os povos indígenas do Brasil. Recentemente foi aprovado no Congresso Nacional uma lei da devastação.
So recently there was a law approved called Law of Devastation.
Onde essa lei ela abre portas para empresas mineradoras explorar os territórios, principalmente os rios, contaminar com mercúrio.
So this law approves and gives space for miners?
Miners, yeah.
Yeah. And other organizations to get inside the indigenous territories and explore the national resources, natural resources.
E licenciamento para desmatamento para o agronegócio. Então, eles têm que parar. Se eles continuar, eles vão estar matando o povo indígena, estar exterminando. Porque eu peço, nesse momento, que essas leis, a lei do devastamento, que seria revogada, mas isso só nossos encantados que podem estar entrando na mente desses parlamentares, porque até o momento a gente já sabe que foi aprovado no Congresso.
So what she really asks is to these kinds of laws stop being approved or being revocated. Does that exist in English? Yeah. So people can have their lands and live in peace with their lands without devastation and deforestation.
Porque são nós, povos indígenas, que protegemos a mãe natureza, que conservamos, para que não só para nós, mas para que a humanidade precisa da mãe natureza, que é a água, da floresta, da terra, para que todos nós sobrevivemos, né?
So it's us indigenous people that take care with so much love for earth and for land, not only for us, but for all of us, so we can have access to water, to land, and to nature in general.
Thank you. So, warm welcome. Thank you. Applause for Aruba and for Marcia. So, thank you. It's a bit squeezy-peasy up here. It's my pleasure now to hand over to the Canadian Water Agency, who we are co-delivering to. So I'll bring Laura up, and I'm escaping. Laura.
Thanks very much, Cheryl. Hi, everyone. I'm Laura Cervoni, the Director of Freshwater Policy at the Canada Water Agency. It's my real pleasure to be here today. I'd like to welcome Colleen James and Lawrence Patterson-Smith to the stage. Colleen James is Dalawadi clan Tlingit Tagish from Carcross at the headwaters of the Yukon River. She is a widely respected knowledge keeper, ceremonial leader, language protector, and cultural ambassador. Colleen was awarded a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Assembly of First Nations Yukon Regional Leadership and an honorary science degree from Yukon University. As a water carrier and protector, she plays a key role in her nation's water committee, supporting governance, research, and the development of a Carcross Tagish First Nation water strategy and action plan. Joining her is Lawrence Patterson-Smith, also from Carcross, and proud Deshitan Clade descendant. Lawrence works as an environmental technician with the Carcross-Tagish First Nation, where he conducts water monitoring across his traditional territory. A lifelong cultural participant and canoe journey leader, Lawrence's deep commitment to water and land is reflected in all aspects of his work and life. Colleen Lawrence, the stage is yours.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming and joining us today. I'd like to acknowledge the Sami people, the Sapmi land, and the sacred relationship that has gone on for time immemorial. We're very honored to be here, and we'd also like to acknowledge Sweden and the Siwi Institute and all of the people behind and have supported us to be here. Gunischish, which is thank you in our language. Next slide, please. Where? I can help you. Just let me know. Okay. Thank you. So we're from the Carcross-Tagish First Nation, and we'll use CTFN a lot of the time to describe that. And we're here to introduce the water strategy of the Carcross-Tagish First Nation, and the word heen is the word for water in Tlingit. We have two languages behind us, and one is of Athabaskan, and in that language, the word for water is tu. And the reason we emphasize that so much here and invite you to do is that the language comes from the land itself. And we have a lot of traumatic history in Canada that has oppressed our cultures and our languages over the many years. And so we use the language as a way, we use the audience as a way to sort of wake up the language. We invite you to say heen, we invite you to say tu, we invite you to say thank you to the water, because that's very important. So we're here to share our story and our journey about the water strategy for the Carcross-Tagish First Nation. Next slide, please. So the CTFN Water Committee was comprised, we're clans people. Lawrence, you want to tell them a little bit about what it means to be a clans person?
It's matriarchal, eh?
Yes.
So it's matriarchal. We follow our mother's lineage, and then their mother on going into their ancestors. So my mother's Deshitan, and her mother's Deshitan, and their grandmothers were Deshitan as well. And there were 6 clans, and they come from the coast of Alaska, the Tlingit side. And we came inland, and so we have a clan system, and it runs the community. So there's a chief, but the clan and the community is all built up of the 6 clans. So on the committee, we have a representation of all 6 clans, and then we have some youth, 2 youth from the Crow side, and then 2 youth from the Wolf side. So there's 4 clans are Crow clans, and then 2 of them are Wolf clans. And the 4 Crow clans are Ishkatan, Deshitan, Kokatan, and Ganachtedi. And then the Wolf clans are Yenyeri and Duklawedi.
And most important about being a clans person is that we're not individual. We're responsible for the collective. It's collective. So if I make a mistake, I offend somebody, I hurt someone, it's the whole clan that's responsible, and it is responsible to pay or make compensation or reparation for that. Next slide, please. So we're situated, the little blue spot on the map there, known as one of the west coast tribes as the Tlingit people, and also inland. There's some important passes known as the Chilkoot Trail or the Chilkat Trail, also, and those are based on, they're called grease trails, where trading used to happen between the coast and the inland. But Lawrence, would you like to elaborate a little bit about what that is? Just the traditional territory?
So that picture on the bottom right is our traditional territory, and it overlaps between 3 communities too. There's Carcross-Tagish, and then there's Teslin, Tlingit, and then there's the Atlan, and they're called the Taku Tlingit. And the Taku Tlingit is on the river of the Taku River, and that comes from Juneau, Alaska. And then there's their connection to the coast. And our connection to the coast is the Chilkat Trail with the Chilkoot. And that is how a lot of settlers came over to find the gold. And that happened around 1898. And that was kind of like the contact. And that's kind of what brought residential schools in, and all sorts of different colonization.
So what part of that map also, in Yukon we have a treaty. So we have a final agreement, contract with other governments, ways of doing things, which gives us a lot of tools in our belt. And we're working on implementing those each day. But the line in the middle of that traditional territory that you see, the top is Yukon and the bottom is British Columbia. And we're in negotiations with British Columbia, and you know, water knows no boundaries, and water has its own spirit and agencies. And so we find it really challenging and difficult to bring governments along to align with our traditional knowledge and culture. So, you know, the laws that we have for the water are in the clan houses. Those kinds of things are important because we use those to protect water. And that's a quote directly from a Dakhluwaiti elder of mine named Stanley James. Next slide, please. So there it is again. I'm Dakhluwaiti. He wrote that in 2012. Another lady, and I just want to elaborate a little bit about the circles and the little tracks there. Circles are very important to Indigenous people, and so are tracks. And so I would like you to try to imagine some caribou tracks up there on the screen, because you know the caribou and the reindeer really connect the Karkwas-Tagish First Nation and the Sami people in my heart. So. You know what, we've done a lot of traditional knowledge, working with the elders, trying to recollect our cultures, revitalize our language, and reconcile our relationships, even with our own traditions and cultures, but also with all the stuff, you know, that's coming our way today. Next slide, please.
Want me to read that?
Sure.
Wushin ye t'u tunye ha kuchlatsin. If we work together, we're going to be strong. And that is from a Nishkatan elder, Winnie Atlin, in 2015, who is no longer with us.
And she was a language teacher and promoter who was very well respected. The picture up on the top is the Karkwas-Tagish First Nation Water Committee. And I'd like to recognize and give thanks to Nicole Wilson, who's also in the pictures, a main support of ours, as well as many others. Jean Damaris is holding the water cup, and often we have ceremony. We start our meetings and our workshops, everything with ceremony, everything with prayer, everything like with song, like our sister just did up here on the stage. So we always ask and invite higher powers and all of creation to come and be with us. And so the water sits in the room and listens, and then we take it down to the main water body, and we release it, and we speak to it, and we give thanks to it. And then as it enters that water body, we know without a doubt that all the waters on the earth are receiving that message, that love, that concern, and whatever, you know, it is that we've put in there, the essence of us. Yeah, so this is, would you like to say more about that? Lawrence is fairly new to this committee. He's Daishitan. I'm Dakhluwaiti. He's Crow. He's Crow Moiti. I'm Wolf Moiti, and opposites are very important. We hold each other up when there's a death or something. The opposite clan does the work, and we pay them. And it's all about out-generousing each other, right? Like you get high accolades if you give away everything. So it's really important in our culture. Next, go ahead.
Sorry, there's a lot of balance in between the two moieties, the clans, because even we have Dakhluwaiti songs and Yinyeti songs, and they're written by the Crow people for our opposites. And also our regalia, we have button blankets and all sorts of caribou hide vests and tunics and octopus bags and woven blankets and out of goat and we make our regalia for our opposites too, and that creates a huge balance, and that's where all the love for each other come from.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's really precious and prideful and honorable when the clan steps up and does a good job to, one, give you something, give names, honor marriages, or put away people in a good way. Next slide, please. So this was a bit of work. We just completed this year. This is like a water time frame for the Carcross-Tagus First Nation people, sort of a history in time. Right, and we thought about it a little bit, and so we started, we had to start with how Crow gets water. So in our home country, you know, Crow is a little bit like Jesus in the Bible, is often compared to. And so Crow gets water from the one man who has it, tricks him out of it, and delivers water and fish, and creates all the water and fish bodies in the world. And so this starts with Crow for us, that starts. You'll see our 6 clans are honored there. Each water drop is representative of something that's happened in history. So the, you know, from the old maps, the first maps that were ever written by our people, right up to a royal proclamation, actually, that we made in 2022, saying to the world, we are the Carcross-Tagus First Nation people. If there's anything you would like to do, have in our traditional territory, come and see us. One of our bodies will, one of our governing bodies will, Okay.
Thank you, Colleen and Lawrence, for sharing your knowledge and journey with us. Due to time, I'll ask you one question. What advice would you offer to other communities or countries looking to integrate Indigenous-led water governance into their policy or other frameworks?
Elders. You need a group of strong speakers with a lot of knowledge from your ancestors and your elders, but it's also great to have youth represented as well. And I'm a youth, so I'm just learning as well, but I have some knowledge where I am also handing it down to more youth, such as my daughter.
Yeah, and we would suggest T before terms of reference.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
It is now my pleasure to introduce Phoenix Coombe, a proud Red River Métis woman from Winnipeg, Manitoba, the heart of the Red River Métis National Homeland. Phoenix currently serves as the National Resources Portfolio Lead of the Manitoba Métis Federation. In this role, she works tirelessly to protect and enhance the lands, waters, and resources of the homeland. Phoenix's work is deeply rooted in bridging traditional knowledge and Western science to develop solutions that honor and advance Red River Métis worldviews, meaningfully integrating them into policy, research, and programming. Thanks, Phoenix.
Thank you. Tanshi, hello everyone. Thank you for that kind introduction, and to all the presenters before me. It is an honor to be here with you today. Sorry, just changing the slide. It's an honor to be here with you today and a privilege to join this important conversation on Indigenous leadership and governance in water policy for climate action at this year's World Water Week. As this is my first time at the conference, I want to express my deep gratitude to the Canada Water Agency for creating opportunities for Indigenous voices to be heard on this international stage. To speak to Indigenous sovereignty and water policy is not just timely, it is essential as we confront the challenges of climate change together. As Laura mentioned, I am a proud Red River Métis woman, born and raised in Winnipeg, Manitoba, which is within the original Red River Métis settlement. I've been working for the Manitoba Métis Federation, the MMF, for over 3 years now, starting as a water resources specialist, then as our Métis community-based climate monitoring coordinator, and now as the natural resources portfolio lead. For me, as a young Red River Métis woman, this work is about making sure our voices and knowledge guide the decisions that affect our lands and waters for now and generations to come. With that background, this is just a quick overview of what I'll be presenting on today. So I'll just give a short history of the Red River Métis in Canada, an introduction to the MMF, our national government, and then 2 case studies on our Métis community-based climate monitoring program and our involvement with the Canada Water Agency thus far. So the Red River Métis are one of the 3 Indigenous peoples recognized under Section 35 of Canada's Constitution. Our Indigenous rights are distinct, equal, and enduring. Throughout history, the Red River Métis have been known by many names: Bois Brûlé, Flower Beadwork People, Louis Riel's people, Opatemsawa, which translates as the people who own themselves. We are a nation with a strong and unique identity, born of the Western Plains and the Red River Valley. Our national homeland spans Western Central North America, encompassing 5 provinces, 1 territory, and then within the United States. We are the creators of the Red River Jig, of Métis fiddle music and dance, of the intricate and world-renowned flower beadwork, and of the Red River cart and York boat, which is a lasting symbol of trade, mobility, and resilience. We are speakers of Michif, our ancestral language, and the bearers of a proud history, including the 1816 victory at Frog Plain and leading the Red River Resistance, which resulted in the creation of Manitoba in 1870. So this is a history and culture built on resilience and is carried forward through our government today. So long before Canada existed, the Red River Métis governed ourselves according to our own laws, traditions, and democratic systems. Today, the MMF, the national government of the Red River Métis, maintains that legacy as a democratic and accountable voice of our nation. Since 2014, we have worked to bring all Red River Métis home, no matter which provincial or national boundaries divide our homeland. Although these boundaries were not of our choosing, our nation remains united and whole. From the days of the buffalo hunt, our people have been guided by 3 governance pillars: a president, a council, and an assembly. Today, David Chartrand and his 22 cabinet ministers continue that work, defending the rights and interests of our people across our homeland. In November 2024, the MMF and Canada signed a historic first-of-its-kind self-government treaty, building on the MMF's earlier work in 2021. This co-developed treaty recognizes the Red River Métis' inherent right to self-government and affirms our self-determination, our elections, and the operations of our government. It provides constitutional protection for these rights and replaces the previous 2021 Self-Government and Recognition and Implementation Agreement. The case studies I'll be sharing today fall under the mandate of the MMF's Environment and Climate Change portfolio, which are led by Ministers Joanne Remillard and Peter Fleming. Through this portfolio, we recognize the role our nation holds today, which is to bridge knowledge across generations, drawing on the wisdom of our elders and the innovation of our youth, to protect and secure the prosperity of Red River Métis for generations to come. A few examples of programs this portfolio delivers includes land-based environmental youth programs, which is delivered through our Métis Environmental Leaders of Tomorrow, or MELT. We offer community restoration projects and stewardship training through our Stewards of the Homeland program, our Métis community-based climate monitoring program, which I'll be discussing in a few more slides, and emergency disaster recovery, which is an area that has become especially urgent given this year's devastating wildfire season in Canada. So the Métis Community-Based Climate Monitoring Program, or MCBCM for short, brings together Western science and Red River Métis traditional knowledge in a way that respects both approaches. It equips citizens across our homeland to become citizen scientists using standardized monitoring protocols alongside culturally grounded practices to observe and record changes in their local environment. This program is open to all Red River Métis citizens, regardless of their background or prior scientific experience, and is supported in part by CERNAC and the Canada Water Agency's Lake Winnipeg Basin program. Since its development, the MCBCM network has expanded to include multiple monitoring streams for our citizens, such as wetland, water quality, winter, and a few more just listed on the screen there. Another initiative I would like to highlight is our Weather Keeper program, where citizens host weather stations on their own properties. This helps fill critical data gaps in northern Manitoba, particularly around the Great Lakes. This real-time data is collected through these stations and then is made publicly accessible on our MMF website, supporting both local and supporting both local decision-making and broader environmental research with the University of Manitoba. Our water monitoring program is our oldest and most established initiative, and it continues to grow each year. More citizens are joining, many return year after year, building on the work they've already started. What makes these programs so powerful is that monitors get to choose sites that are meaningful to them. Lakes, rivers, streams that they use for harvesting, recreation, or cultural practices. Many of these sites do fall within the Lake Winnipeg Basin, so the work that they're doing is not just personal, it's contributing to the health and resilience of our waters across the national homeland. During the 2024-2025 open water season, we had 45 sites actively monitored, many of them by families and elders, highlighting the deep community involvement and the intergenerational knowledge at the heart of this program. All of our monitoring programs use the Survey 123 application, making data accessible across our regions, including beyond provincial borders. Importantly, our surveys do not just collect data, they give citizens a chance to share stories, photos, and videos, because for the Red River Métis, traditional knowledge is inseparable from the lands and waters themselves. Training materials and monitoring protocols are available online on our website and YouTube channel, so citizens can learn and participate from wherever they are. Beyond monitoring, the MCBCM program hosts a variety of citizen science events, including birding and nature walks, hands-on training workshops, and participation in many international initiatives, such as the Christmas Bird Count, Monarch Monitoring Blitz. These events build environmental literacy, inspire climate action, and strengthen the connection between our citizens, our community, and the global community of environmental stewards. I would like to now turn to an example of broader policy work led by our MMF government, initiatives that both protect our lands and waters and advance Red River Métis rights, governance, and sovereignty. The MMF and the Canada Water Agency have been collaborating since before the agency was formally established. From the outset, our shared goal has been to ensure that Red River Métis voices are not only heard, but are meaningfully reflected in the agency's design, policies, and programs. This early relationship created opportunities for the MMF to help shape national conversations about water governance in a way that respects Indigenous rights, responsibilities, and knowledge systems. Engaging early and often while ensuring distinction-based approaches has been a cornerstone of this collaboration. The MMF provided a discussion paper on the development of the Canada Water Agency, and it outlined a vision for the agency's role and ensured that Red River Métis rights perspectives informed its foundation. We are currently in the pre-engagement phase of the modernization of the Canada Water Act, which provides an important mechanism to emphasize how Canada's water legislation must evolve to recognize Indigenous jurisdiction, rights, and knowledge, as well as the expectations of engaging with the MMF and its citizens. The MMF hosted a community meeting with our citizens earlier this year, providing presentations, facilitating breakout groups, and conducting a survey to better understand their priorities and their concerns. This was the first of many citizen meetings that will guide our input throughout the engagement process. Beyond this relationship, the MMF has also been a funding partner since 2018 through the Canada Water Agency's Lake Winnipeg Basin program. This partnership has supported on-the-ground projects such as our Métis community-based climate monitoring program, while contributing to the long-term health of Lake Winnipeg and its watershed. While capacity funding remains our greatest limitation, this support has enabled us to sustain long-term monitoring and strengthen our programs in these areas. At the basis of all this work is a relationship built on respect for MMF governance and laws. At the MMF, all engagement and consultation follow our Resolution Number 8 process, which provides a one-window approach and ensures accountability to our citizens by grounding our work in this process. We reaffirm the principle that engagement with the Red River Métis must take place on a government-to-government basis. To wrap up, I just want to highlight that these programs show that Indigenous leadership in water and climate isn't just a concept, it's happening on the ground, led by our citizens and guided by our government. And the work we've done with the Canada Water Agency is a real example of what nation-to-nation partnerships should look like between Canada and the Red River Métis. So thank you very much for giving me the time today to share these programs, and I've left my information on here if you have any further questions after the presentation. So, merci.
Merci, Phoenix. Thank you for sharing your insights and expertise with us. Due to time, I'll ask you one question myself. What advice would you give to researchers or policymakers aiming to genuinely collaborate with Indigenous communities using both traditional knowledge and Western science?
Sure, yeah, that's a great question. So again, through our engagement and consultation department, they have developed another process, another policy for collaborating with the MMF on research. So if you go through that department there, I think that's probably your best step. And this way it ensures that the MMF is the one that is engaging with our citizens in a respectful manner. And we will work with you on how to accomplish that. But I think that's the big, the takeaway point I'd like to mention is that working with the MMF to ensure that that research is done in a respectful manner. So yeah.
Thanks again.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So we'll now move to the open question and answer portion of the session. Thank you. Don't see any questions from the audience. Double checking. Great. Great, thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, thank you so much, everyone, for the great presentations. My question is for Phoenix. You were talking about citizen science and implementing or programs to increase environmental literacy. Did you have any challenges you have had in implementing those tools or programs like citizen science?
Thank you for the question. Yeah, certainly as the coordinator for the program, there was quite a few challenges. I would say the biggest one being, since it is citizen-led, is getting that recruitment and engagement within the program. I think that historically, the Red River Métis have felt that that traditional knowledge maybe isn't as elevated to Western science. I think it's great to encourage those folks that it is. In fact, it's immemorial, so it's even higher in my opinion to Western science, and it's passed down from generation to generation. So I think just encouraging those folks that it doesn't matter that you have, you know, a PhD, a master's, just to get out there and talk to the changes that you're observing, because that is also important, is that historical telling of the different stories and you know, things that you've seen on the land as boots on the ground. So I think that's something I would say is a challenge, is getting folks to be a part of the program. But yeah, it's very fulfilling and it's really great work. So
thank you. Any other questions from the audience?
I have a follow-up on that question. You used an example of Indigenous, you said, and you just mentioned that you also record stories. I was wondering if you could tell us how you record those stories and also how you kind of derive and interpret that. And I also had a question for Colleen after that, which is, I really liked your comment on T before TORs. I was wondering if you could tell us an example of how you've been actually able to reshape a TOR, for example, by just sitting across the table and talking. Has that actually been successful, and can you give us a concrete example?
Thank you for the question. So there's a couple different ways we can collect traditional knowledge. Through the Citizen Scientist program, all the surveys have the option for them to provide a voice recording, photos, or videos. So oftentimes folks will be on the land and they'll take a short, or sometimes it's a longer video, and they'll just talk to what they remember from being at that area. So sometimes it looks like a story of, I remember being here with my grandparents, and I remember seeing that the water was this high. So that's maybe an example there of like on the ground. Another sort of method that we collect traditional knowledge is through our interview process. So we have a traditional knowledge interview data catalog. So through that, we map a lot of land use and occupancy, and that has kind of a two-component part to it. So we'll ask them questions while showing them a map, and we put points on the map of different, whether it's like harvesting or it's using that area for cultural purposes. And this is all housed within the MMF, so it's safe, it's protected, and it's not being used in a disrespectful way. And then just to go a step further with that, we can also bring that citizen to the land and do something called a ground truthing. So we can actually get an accurate point, a GPS point. But yeah, thank you for the question.
What I meant by T before terms of references, for Indigenous people, it's really important to get around. We use circles a lot with no barriers in between. And the campfire or the fire is often a part of our Indigenous governance. So we strike up a fire, get around and say, so what are we going to do about this situation? And we share our stories, and it's through the stories that we begin to know each other a little bit more, respect each other a little bit more, and take heed and really kind of listen. So it's really important for us to have tea before we start to talk about how things going to be. So it's really important when we get together to ask, what are we going to do about this situation? And how are we going to be with one another while we're in this discussion? Are we going to be angry and walk out, or are we going to be respectful? Oh, and by the way, what does that mean to you? And what does that mean to you? And it grows your perception and your worldview of respect. And next thing you know, you're all having a conversation where you find more balance between science and traditional knowledge.
Thank you. So an opportunity for one last question.
I really made you climb those stairs. Thank you. It's such an honor to be here with all of you, sharing your work as water protectors and your traditional knowledge. Thank you for making the effort to be here so far away from home. I am curious if you all have found effective organizations or networks or forums or gatherings outside of your traditional homelands, maybe even outside of your continents, where you've come together with other like-minded folks, Indigenous or non-Indigenous, to share your practices. This has been a very powerful space for many of us, but I'm wondering, have you found other effective spaces to share this knowledge and to plan together and to build best practices? I'm trying to get an understanding of what those other forums, those other meeting places are.
Go ahead, Kay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Happy to share a story from back home in Australia. So I mentioned the Murray-Darling Basin. It's crosses 4 states, Queensland, 5 states. Thanks, Cheryl. Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, ACT, South Australia. Now, across the basin, probably going back some 13 years for me, I started gathering with all the different tribes throughout the basin. So within the northern part and the southern part, and that's over 50 language groups. And we come together in gatherings to talk about our land and waters and sharing that information and sharing our successes and also things that haven't been so successful. So it's a really big get-together gathering of traditional owners, you know, talking with each other and talking things through with each other. So, yeah, we find strength in numbers through that means. Yep. Thank you.
I'm not sure if I understood your question correctly, but were you talking about exchanging lessons with other Indigenous peoples abroad? Is that what you meant?
Yes, as one example, that's excellent, yes.
Okay, so this has been my personal gripe. I know we've had traditional knowledge sessions in other international conferences, but what I've observed over the years is we're often shunted to a side room far away from the main venue where we're just talking to each other. And things have got to change, and that's why I'm so happy with this World Water Week, because we actually take center stage tomorrow, and that's the way it should be. We should be talking to the masses, not just to each other. So up until now, my personal experience is, yes, we've had fora for this, but always in a small side room far away from the main audience. That's where this conference this week is such a refreshing change. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'd like to thank all the speakers as well. You can feel free to leave the stage if you'd like. Thank you. Yeah.
I guess, yeah, we can.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Thank you all for being part of today's session. And a heartfelt thank you to each of your speakers. Your stories, leadership, and deep knowledge have grounded this conversation in what truly matters: respect for water, respect for land, and respect for Indigenous peoples and traditional knowledge. Throughout this session, we have seen how Indigenous leadership and traditional knowledge are not only shaping water governance, but also offering powerful place-based solutions to some of the most urgent water challenges we are facing today. As impactful and inspiring as these case studies are, they represent only a fraction of the action that is being taken around the world. Looking ahead, there are a few important next steps to note. Tomorrow, we encourage you to attend the high-level panel that was just mentioned on Indigenous peoples at the heart of decision-making, lessons for water, on the center stage at 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. This is the first time there will be an Indigenous focus high-level panel at World Water Week, and will feature strength-based stories that honor water as a life source and highlight Indigenous leadership. Later this week, during the closing plenary, Indigenous leaders will deliver a closing statement which will carry forward the collective priorities and messages from this conference into the global space. As we look ahead to the 2026 United Nations Water Conference, we must continue to amplify Indigenous voices on the global stage and support Indigenous participation in multilateral decision-making processes. Thank you again for your participation, both in the room and online. Please continue to connect, reflect, and share what you have heard today. We look forward to seeing many of you tomorrow at the high-level panel. Thanks again.
When the